All right, this is going to be part 40, and there isn't a cohesive thread in this. It's just kind of things I found that fit into the puzzle perfectly, and I'm going to go over them. So let's begin with Woody Strode. Woody Strode plays a very pivotal role in this puzzle because he's the high jumper. So we're looking for Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump. So Woody is our high jumper. He's a UCLA high jumper, signed at 42, first professional football player. He has Neptune's trident. And the key thing that happens in this movie right after this scene is he gets Kirk Douglas pinned down, and he has the chance. He can easily kill him at this point. And instead of killing Kirk, he chooses to make a run at the wealthy patrons that paid to see this killing. And he fails. He gets very close to hitting one of the wealthy people who paid to see this fight. And so he's when Kirk says, "I am Spartacus," and all the men are, "I am Spartacus," we have to unite together. And it doesn't matter what color we are, where we live, we're all human. And until we get this message, we're forever going to be fighting wars. So Woody is Neptune's trident. Woody is the first black professional football player. Woody is our high jumper. This is Operation High Jump, Long Jump. So we have this connection in the Kubrick movie, but we need to have this connection in other movies because this is such a important piece of this puzzle. So one of the ways they do it is with his trident and Neptune. Another way they do it is by mimicking his hat. And Woody, if you notice, all these men are wearing their hat rotated 90 degrees. It's, not the normal way. Normally the hat would go the other way, but they choose to wear it sideways. And so when we jump to a John Carpenter movie that's supposedly taking place in Antarctica, Kurt Russell picks the Woody Strode hat to make a link between Operation Long Jump, High Jump, and Antarctica. So it's not an accident he wears this freaky hat. If you know the puzzle language, you know that we're using every conceivable channel there is. You have Jack's Timberline, but he has a pair of Jack's Timberline boots. These boots were made for walking, stuff like that. So we're using vests, handmade vests from Eugene Krantz. We're using hats now, caps. So that's the point I wanted to make earlier, and I don't think I really made it very well in the previous video, so that's why I wanted to cover this again. And these are the hats. It's the Woody Strode hat. And of course, Napoleon wears the same sideways cap. So Woody Strode is very... So when we go to Toy Story and we find out that they tell you that the Woody figurine in Toy Story is based on Woody Strode, there's a reason for it. He's the high jumper. He's the Operation High Jump. And he's very important in our puzzle, and obviously his importance is emphasized by he's given Neptune's spear. So it's the Battle of the Titans. So in the Battle of the Titans, you have Neptune and his spear. So we had Apollo, we had Jupiter, we had Saturn, now we have Neptune. So the Battle of the Titans is communicated by when you find these attributes of these Greek gods. Close this. I mentioned before that the VW Beetle was the first successful commercial vehicle to go to Antarctica. It was not the first vehicle to go to Antarctica at all. There were several specialty-built vehicles, this one being one of the most absurd ones there is. Let's zoom in on this thing. I'm going to get more pictures of this. But this is the Snow Cruiser, and this behemoth... It made a tour, this reminds me of early failed public relations psychological operations. They needed to make a big deal about going to Antarctica, so they make this ridiculous vehicle that weighed 68 million thousand pounds, and they drive it all around the United States, hither and thither, so every town in Podunk, Iowa can see this thing. And then they transport it all the way to Antarctica. And they can't even get the thing out. It's so heavy, they can't even get it off the boat. It's like collapsing the ramps, and it's an abject failure. It gets stuck in the ice. And it very shortly after it gets stuck in the ice, the spring thaw comes and bloop, it's gone. It sinks to the bottom of the ocean. So when I say the VW Beetle was the first successful vehicle in Antarctica, in reality, it really was. There were tracked vehicles that were there. Of course, we have the active Fisher snow track. Another one I figured out from the movie The Thing is in one scene, the character Fuchs tells McCready he wants to talk to him out in the Thiacle. Well, the Thiacle is the snow sprite. That's the vehicle Wendy uses to escape in The Shining, is a Thiacle sprite. So he says to McCready, let's go out and talk in the Thiacle. Well, in the movie, he goes outside with McCready, but they don't go to the Thiacle. They go to the Bombardier snow dozer. So Bombardier, in Dr. Strangelove, Major King Khan, is a bombardier. So it's like a clever, it's very close, Bombardier. So that was interesting, and it's the snow dozer. So in The Shining we have Danny's Caterpillar bulldozer, and we have the bull category. So it was another way that fits in. So this is one of the specialty vehicles that was just a disaster. These tires were bald. They were like, there was no tread on them whatsoever. And there's even some more interesting things about this plane I'm going to show you in a minute here. So another thing I want to mention, I haven't really focused on it, I just kind of ignored it, is during this puzzle we find various people. And one of the people we find is George Orwell. And so we have the books 1984 and Animal Farm and all that. But we also have, he was a public flat earther, and there were statements to this effect that he made publicly. And here's one of them in the Tribune, the 27th of December, 1946. He says, most people have asked to prove that the earth is round would not even bother to produce the weak arguments I have outlined above. So he talks about, people think it's a globe, but they have no idea. And of course, we have George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw shares a birthday with Kubrick. And so we find out that George Bernard Shaw is also a flat earther. And he made statements to that effect, that he didn't believe in the globe. This I'm bringing up, I have a question for people. I know people, there's got to be somebody who living in New York. Is this Hoboken train station or is this Grand Central Station? If someone can answer that question, that'd be great. And of course, it's included the Minotaur thread and the Theseus and all that. Here's another clue I brought up earlier. So the movie The Terminator is looking more and more like it's in this puzzle. And right off the bat, we have Linda Hamilton and her twin, identical twin. So the puzzle has symmetry. So sometimes it will be the star that is a twin. So, like in The Shining, you have the Burns twins. And sometimes it'll be like Elvis was a twin or Apollo was a twin. So it's not always going to be in the same area of the puzzle, but it'll be the same language. So we have the twins pattern again, the Twin Towers and Paul and Fall and the Titanic on the Olympic. And I've made lists of these. There's tons of them. So we have a connection to Harlan Ellison already. Harlan Ellison was involved in the movie The Terminator. This is another connection to Kubrick and his lenses. He makes a big deal when he makes the movie Barry Lyndon. He tells everybody that he wanted to use just the candlelight. So in order to do that, he has to borrow a special Zeiss lens, very ultra low light lens from NASA to do this film. And it has a very short focal length. And so he's drawing attention to that. He has a relationship with NASA. He can borrow spy lenses whenever he needs. I think if I called NASA tomorrow and said, listen, guys, I'm going to make a movie and I want to borrow your super secret Zeiss spy lens, I don't think they're going to loan it out to me. But it didn't seem to be a problem for Stanley when he needed it from NASA. They were right there for him. This is a theme I've mentioned during the puzzle of dueling. there is a theme of duels, and I'll make a list of these. But in Barry Lyndon, in the beginning of the movie, his father dies in a duel, and then he has several duels, and he has sword fighting duels in the movie to dispute on debt disputes, and then he has a duel with his half son, and he gets his leg blown off. So the dueling thing is repeated over and over. Garrett Brown invents the Steadicam. He's the founder, the father of the Steadicam. So in the puzzle, we're finding people that make the first of something. Like Arthur C. Clarke is the father of the satellite. So the Steadicam becomes a sort of like a Lewis Carroll White Bunny. We follow the Steadicam where it goes, and we find out that the Steadicam's first usage was in the movie Halloween, and then of course we have Halloween is the first day at the Overlook. It's a holiday clue. It's Michael Collins, the whiskey / the astronaut's birthday, October 31st, which is one of the threads with Fellini and all that. I've covered the October 31st thread, but so this man is a bunny. We're going to follow the Steadicam wherever it goes, and here we see him in the labyrinth with his Steadicam, and so that's interesting. And these are, like I said, all these pictures that were supplied, a lot of them are alchemical. Here's the, we get to see, in the beginning of The Shining, we see the shadow of the helicopter. So the helicopter, part of its name is Helios, and in the heliocentric model, everything rotates around Helios. So in the helicopter, you have a central shaft, and the rotor spins around the central shaft, so it's a heliocopter. And we get to see the shadow of the helicopter, and it's a Bell Jet Ranger. And the Bell, there's a category of Bells. I'm gonna make them as well. But the Bell Jet Ranger, the Bell Helicopter Company was owned by Lady Bird Johnson, and her family made tons of money off it because Vietnam was a helicopter war. And so it's another connection to Bells. It's another connection to Helios, the heliocopter. And we see the heliocopter setup does not have the Steadicam ability. It's just bolted directly to the helicopter. So the only way you get fluid, non-bumpy scenes is to have a really good pilot and fly in, very low wind conditions, which is they were able to do. So we get to see the minute continuity error. We get to see the shadow of the helicopter. And like I said before, if someone could send me an example, I'd love to see it. But there's never a non-intentional continuity error in a Kubrick movie. It just doesn't have. That's why he does 120 takes of everything, because if there's a continuity error, it was intentional. So we see the shadow of the helicopter. This is I covered this earlier, but oh my God, it's full of stars. It's full of stars. It's full of Hollywood stars and explorers and baseball stars and football stars and the Corona Borealis and Antares, the Apollo CSM name, and on and on, Capricorn and Gemini. Went over that. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts. So this is a direct connection to 9/11. 9/11, he died. So we have a Paul and a Billy are combined to become Fall. So 2 becomes 1. It's 21 again. So it's we have parallels between Paul and Fall and the Twin Towers as well. You have 2 towers become 1. Twin Pines Mall becomes Lone Pine. This is back to Paul McCartney and the one-legged wife. And she was campaigning against landmines. So, that's interesting. It reminds me of Princess Diana. We have mirroring and doubling and twins. We see this in the movie. This movie, The Matrix, is alchemical. I mean, I don't know if you could watch it and not realize that. But this is a better picture I found of Picard and the baskets they were forced to wear right before they took off in their balloon ride. And this man, clearly, he said when he came down, it looked like a flat plane with upturned edges. Here we go. This is back to the snow cruiser. We have Tom Cruise. This is one that I didn't get earlier on. But we have the Moonwalker and the Skywalker and the Johnny Walker and the Small Step and the Giant Leap and the Long Jumper and the High Jumper. And we have Tom Cruise. So it's another form of transportation. We can cruise. We can get in a boat. We can cruise. We can get in a car and cruise. So we have the Antarctica Snow Cruiser. So it's a car, but it's a plane as well. It's a car plane. This is the thing that sinks in the ocean, and it's a joke. So when we go to The Man with the Golden Gun, and we see Christopher Lee, Mr. Vampire, and he has the golden flying matador, it's a connection to flying cars. So we have a connection to flying cars now. And this is our second flying car. This is, I talked earlier about chain smoking. So here with the chain link fence, and he's chain smoking. So the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is alchemical, and the people in it are jumping all into different movies that are alchemical. This is the Sea Rock in situ. Just, I had showed close-ups of it before, but here it is, the original. And the Hamilton, their sister. This is the Apollo 15 crew. This man is the Falconer. He's a real-life Falconer. This is David Randolph Scott. So when we were watching The Shining, and we see Randolph Scott is the star of Carson City that's playing on the television, directed by one-eyed director Andre Dutoff, we're really being pointed to David Randolph Scott. This is the man that does the Hammer Falcon feather drop on Apollo 15, the mission that launches on Stanley's birthday. And, he's part of the Scotts category, which I've made lists of before. And Irwin is a famous company that makes tape measures. So we're always collecting carpentry tools. So we have, Scott Carpenter, and I've made lists of these before too. Let's go to this. You seen that? Seen that? This is a connection to a movie by Alfred Hitchcock, Vertigo. And the reason I put her picture in here is, and I haven't analyzed this movie completely, I've seen a bunch of scenes from it, but she kind of plays like a double, like a twin. She's impersonating somebody who she isn't, but she looks very much like the person she isn't. So it's another doubling twin clue. And of course, Vertigo is, you have Coriolis, Whirlpool, Vertigo. They all fit together. This is a connection to Planet of the Apes. The name of the ship in Planet of the Apes is Icarus, which is bizarre. So it's looking like that might be alchemical. This is the scene where he says, there's nothing to figure out. This man is obviously a psychotic. I've been saying clearly a psychotic. It's obviously a psychotic. So it's another saying about you're crazy, you're fruity, you're nutty, you out of your effing mind. And it was Hawk Productions on the chopper. Here's the archetype wheel. This is the allegory I was drawing before about the zodiac. You have the 12 zodiac signs. You have the archetype wheel. You have the titans. You have the 12 titans. So he's repeating this 12 titan thing, archetype / zodiac. They're all representing essentially the same thing. The Discovery ship itself was actually a giant gyroscope with a rotating centrifuge in the middle of it. This is interesting. I think I've mentioned this before, but Kubrick was actually a jazz drummer. He liked to play jazz drums. So this is when he was researching his movie. He was going to do the movie Swing with the Nazis. And it was going to be about jazz greats and the Nazis. So when I talk about Louis Armstrong's museum in Corona, Flushing, Queen, I'm not pulling Louis Armstrong out of thin air. We've been given clues to the unmade movie category of jazz, Swing with a Nazi. Then we all have all the swingers. We have the Apollo astronauts swinging on cables, and Marie Windsor swinging with her cuckold relationship, and Mrs. Linden cuckolding, and there's all these different swingers in the puzzle. Jack swings the axe, Wendy swings the baseball bat, and Billie Jean King swings her tennis racket, and yada, yada, yada. So Kubrick was a jazz drummer. This fits into our uni category. We had the unibody car, the Ford Falcon and the Ford Mustang, the first unibody cars ever. We had, oh God, I'm going to lose it now, the Unisphere in Corona, Flushing, Queens. We have the Monolith. We have the Lone Nut, Lonely, Alone. It's always 11111, uni. So we go to Blade Runner, and here's a handmade, hand-folded origami unicorn. And I don't know if it's made out of gum wrappers or if it's made out of tobacco foil. But it's shiny. We know that. It's very shiny. I showed you earlier where, it was Kubrick's birthday, and it was Brando's birthday, and it's Vivian Kubrick's birthday when Dr. Floyd calls, and it's Frank Poole's birthday when his father calls and says, see you next Wednesday. So we go into Ridley Scott's movie, Alien, and this is Alien 2, I believe. And we have, it's the little girl in Alien. I think it's the little girl in Alien 2's birthday. This is Newt. She would be in the crawler category with the NASA crawler and the snakes. This goes into Back to the Future. We hear Chuck Berry and Johnny B. Good. So all things Johnny is, all things Johnny is going to have Johnny B. Good. Johnny B. Good is like the quintessential, touchstone for rock and roll music. They always call Elvis the king of rock. I'm sorry. I mean, I like Elvis. I love Elvis's stuff, but the real king of rock is Chuck Berry. And so it's interesting to see that he's mentioned in Back to the Future. And also we have the good projection, Goode is the spelling, the good projection, which is another, the azimuthal equidistant projection. You have the good projection. You have the Peters projection. You have all these different projections. So anyway, here's a letter, and they're talking about Chuck Berry's song, Johnny Be Good, is going to be put on the gold record that goes on the NASA Voyager Interstellar. It's an interstellar. I mean, it's an interstellar satellite, Voyager, and it's going to have Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good on it. So that's hilarious. I showed this before. This is a better picture of it. We can see the Playboy I don't know if you can see this in the video, but this is a Playboy magazine. So we have Playboy magazines in the Apollo missions. We have Playboy models in Kubrick's movies. We have Playboy magazine in 2001: A Space Odyssey. This isn't actually in the movie. This is a production shot. But once again, these are Ouija shots. And every one of them is like a chess move. And she has the ball head, This is good. I saw this one too. It's not really part of the puzzle, but Earth is flat. Who the fuck said that? That's pretty good. It's pretty clever. The chain smokers clues. The lemon in Full Metal Jacket. Maybe I'll do that in the next video. I'll show you this scene. In Full Metal Jacket, there's one scene where there's like the Citroens are just going around in circles. There must be 10 of them. And so Citroen is lemon. And you have Gus Grissom's lemon. So we go to 007, and we're back to a Citroen again, the lemon. So vehicles are being used as a clue set. his book alone. He's giving you the Kubrick stare. You know, he's not like, look at me, I'm famous. I went all the way to the South Pole. Look at I'm great. He's looking at you like, listen, there's some shit we need to talk about. You know, I mean, that's the look right there. Something's not right down in the pole, guys. This is a globe in Barry Lyndon and the classroom. So this is a little clue to, you know, the indoctrination program. Bobby took the train. So here we have all the people standing on the side of the tracks. And, you know, I covered the Bobby date puzzle, the whole Kennedy date puzzle in the last video. So here's Bobby took the train. Here's a picture of Ted Kennedy standing on the back of Bobby's funeral train. And you probably can't even tell it's Ted Kennedy, but it is Ted Kennedy. So Bobby took the train. Jack took the horse. John takes the plane. Saw that already. This gets into a new category here. So now we're jumping into the future. Scatman Crothers did the voice for the cartoon Transformers. He did the robot Jazz. You know. So he also, I believe he's also in the more modern Transformers movies. So that's interesting. You know, maybe there's there could be alchemical connections to those movies as well. This is from the UFO TV series, and they don't call it the International Astronomics. Oh God, I can't even remember it now. They change it a little bit, but it's the same. You know, this is the commission that would name the craters on the moon. So they don't name it exactly like it, but it's close enough. It's the IAC, which is what the redhead in 2001: A Space Odyssey. She talks to Dr. Floyd about coming to the IAC meeting they're going to have in the spring or something, and so we're given clue, and of course we're given the Tycho magnetic anomaly, which is in the Tycho crater, named by the IAC, and we're given the Clavius crater, named by the IAC, and we're given all the clues to Sabine A, B, and C, which were renamed Aldrin, Armstrong, and Collins crater, and also there's an Eagle crater and a Falcon crater. This is a different thread that I've been working on, and we have the Shepard's thread. There's an Alan Shepard, and you have Wayne Brazel was a Shepard, and Mac Brazel was a Shepard, and Jesus was a Shepard, and Apollo was a Shepard, and you have Shepardin Studios, and you have the One-Armed Man. We see Dr. Kimball. Now, Dr. Kimball was a rewrite of the Sam Shepard case where he got imprisoned, and in the movie they're looking for the One-Armed Man. So we see Dr. Kimball in 2001: A Space Odyssey. We see Kimball crater on Apollo 15, and we see Kola Korani is this is the gentleman that's in Kubrick's movie The Killing, and he distracts the guards at the racetrack while they rob it. And in real life, he was a pro wrestler, you know, like in the ring, like a Jesse Ventura of pro wrestling. And so here he is having one of his matches. It turns out Sam Shepard, also after he got released from jail, he did pro wrestling as well. So that's a bizarre. I mean, we have Dr. Kimball, we have the Shepard's category, we have the wrestling category, and then we find out Sam Shepard was a wrestler. Sam Shepard, Dorothy Kilgallen talked about Sam Shepard and said he was innocent. So that's weird. We have a connection to Dorothy Kilgallen. And also I found out today that Dorothy Kilgallen and Marilyn Monroe actually got to go visit Queen Elizabeth. And I believe it was during her coronation, but I have to do a little more work on that. And this is Gloria Hendry. She's one of the bald-haired girls in Scatman's bedroom. She's a Playboy bunny, and she also she hops into the Bond movie. So there's another James Bond connection. So we had Christopher Lee. We had the Oleg Cassini golden flying Matador that Christopher Lee drives. We have Hervé Villachez, a dwarf, we're always using physical attributes of people. So the guy with the big nose, the woman with the big breasts, the short man, whatever it is, whatever it can be defined, we will use it. And we use, all these things are chess moves. This is Apollo 15. It launches on Stanley's birthday, right here, July 26th. Let's move this out of the way. This is more fan art, and it's pretty clever. You can see the Neptune's trident here, and you can see Lee Ermey and the twins. So he's giving it, each of these little bubbles has a little alchemical clue in it. Sterling Hayden is over here. I also found out that, so Robert Falcon Scott's ship, one of the polar explorers that dies on his last trip to the South Pole, his ship was named the Discovery, and Arthur C. Clarke mentions that he visits the ship in port in England when he writes the book. And it turns out that Admiral Byrd also has a book, the Discovery book. So it's another connection to polar explorers. And then we have the Playgirl category, which is becoming fascinating. Let's get rid of these. I don't need these now. There's Marie Windsor, Queen of B movies. So we have Tony Burton as a Duke in boxing. He plays Duke in Rocky. And then we have John Wayne, the Duke. So we have three Dukes as a triplet. So we have Queen of the B movies, Marie Windsor, who's a redhead. Well, if we combine Duke plus Windsor, we get the Duke of Windsor. So we had Queen Elizabeth, now we have the Duke of Windsor. So we're jumping into Smokey and the Bandit. And it turns out that Johnny DeLorean, he's in the puzzle several ways already. He designs the Firebird, the Trans Am. So we got Bert, he jumps into the Trans Am. He's in Smokey and the Bandit with Cracker, Jackie Gleason. In the whole movie, he's a cracker. He's always being racist. Then we jump into The Thing with Kurt Russell, Mouseketeer. We jump into Rocky, Balboa, the Italian Stallion, Sylvester, Looney Tune. And we have connections to the Laurel Canyon Band, Van Halen, which is mentioned in Back to the Future. And we have Diamond Dave, so he's a diamond, so he fits right into it. You have the JD bass. You have the handmade one-off guitar he played, made in Neptune, New Jersey. So Playgirls and Playboy are being used in this puzzle. And so that's interesting. He's using every channel he possibly can. This is another part of our clever allegory. The Donna